the federal and state level. Let us welcome Sister Sabira to begin her presentation with Salawat ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad.
Thank you. Thank you, Aga Suleiman. I really appreciate this opportunity to talk to the community as a whole with regards to this topic. I understand. I mean, it's a crazy time that we're going through at the moment. So it's concerning, and I know that everyone has different challenges during this time. So as a community, we're here to try and help as much as we can. Do we have the presentation loaded, or can I share it on my screen or something? Or
so I haven't loaded it. You're welcome to load it if you're able.
Okay, give me 1 second. Actually, what I'll do is I'll talk to it through my screen, and then we can maybe share it on the website later on, just in case I don't want to hold up people.
Sure.
Okay. Like I was just saying, that the first thing is, I know that both at the federal level and the state level, safety first. If possible, stay home. If not, keep social distance. You could be a carrier and not know it. Just want to put that message out there. And the community is doing a great job in social distancing. I know it's hard, but inshallah, if we all do our part, then be good Muslims, do our part, then inshallah this will be over faster than we know it. From the information point of view, as Al-Salman introduced me, I'm not a tax professional. What I do, so this information that I'm presenting at the moment is based on my understanding of the stimulus package. I've tried to simplify it for everyone's understanding. So I may have oversimplified stuff, but I'm trying to keep it at a level that everybody understands the complexity of this. I'm not a tax professional, so if you have tax questions, I would suggest that you reach out to a certified tax personnel. So the stimulus package that was passed, it's called CARES. It was passed for it's the $2 trillion that you've probably heard about in the news. There's a lot of people that are eligible. They believe about on an individual level, which is what I'm talking about at the moment. 80% of Americans are supposed to be able to claim their share of the stimulus package. So the first and foremost thing is individuals should have to have filed a 2019 or 2018 tax return. So if you've not filed 18 or 19, that is the first thing that you need to do in order to qualify for the stimulus package. The other thing is that your adjusted gross income has to be below $75,000 to get the full amount, which is $1,200 per person. So that's everyone that is over the age of 18, per an adult, I should say. Now, adjusted gross income, I will come to that again. This is not just your income, it's actually on your tax form, but it's not the amount you earn. It is the amount you earn and minus a few deductions. If you are, and this is, the 75,000 is the requirement for an individual who's not married, and it does go up to 99,000. So you can still get some of that stimulus package, but you'll get a partial amount. If you are married, your adjusted gross income needs to be below 150,000, and up to $198,000 you will get as an amount, a reduced amount. If you're the head of household, and that's generally like for single parent families, your adjusted income has to be below 112,500 to get the full amount, and if it's up to 136,500, you will get a partial amount. If you earn above the maximum amounts I've mentioned here, you are ineligible for the stimulus. As I was mentioning, adjusted gross income, it's your income, which is your wages, dividends, and any capital gains or business income that you have, minus certain expenditure, certain payments such as student loan interest, traditional and your retirement account, health savings account. It's on your IRS form 1040. I want to say that you can also get this stimulus even if you are on Social Security or you are retired. So it just goes back to what is your adjusted income. And it's line 37. If you actually look at the 1040 form, it's the line 37 is the one that you're looking for. As I was mentioning before, if you're an individual, you get up to 1,200. If you're married, it would be 2,400. And then on top of that, if you have any children, that's anyone under the age of 17, you get $500 extra per a child. So for example, for me and my husband, we have 2 kids. So we would qualify for the 2,400 plus 500 for each kid, which would make it up to 3,400 if we qualified, if we were eligible for it. The big question that a lot of people have is like, what if I've moved and how will the money be distributed and so forth? The key things that as I was mentioning earlier, is whether you filed your taxes. If you filed 2019 taxes, it should have your current address on there, so you're great. If you filed 2018 and since then you've moved, I would suggest file your 2019 taxes as soon as possible. When you file your taxes, there's the option to provide the IRS with your bank details if you are getting a refund, or if you owe money, you would provide them with your bank details. If you provided them with your bank details, that's how you will get the money. It will be sent by direct deposit. If you have not provided the IRS with your bank details, the stimulus check, a stimulus check will be mailed to you. Again, if you've not filed taxes in 2018 and 2019, that makes you actually ineligible for the stimulus. So that's the key part here. When will you get money now? So when I wrote this, the first payments were due to go out on April 6th. However, they've now said that is actually, they're pushing it out to April 13th, and I've heard later as well. So this is a program being run through the IRS. So it goes at unfortunately, it goes at government speed. So there are some people that will get it faster. Obviously, electronic deposits, direct deposits will go faster than mailing out checks, but they are trying to get this out to everybody that is eligible as soon as possible. Other information to just keep in mind, it's that the stimulus money is not taxable at this moment in time. If you earn higher than the eligible amounts, but you have lost your job due to Corona, or for anything, if in recent months you've lost your job, you still don't qualify for the stimulus at this moment. College students who are independent of their parents, so they're not on their parents' tax forms, they are eligible for stimulus. But if they're dependents, like you claim them in your taxes, then they're not eligible. The IRS should have some more information over the next few weeks. So hopefully that will clarify this further. I was going to pose for questions now, but I think we're going to move on to the second part, unless anyone's got any dying questions.
So I think, thank you for that. Let's move on to the second presentation, and then maybe we can have time for questions at the end. So the second presentation will be by Brother Imran Dhanji, who's joining us from Houston, Texas. He's worked in the IT industry. He's worked with community members and set up the Joffrey No Interest Credit Union in Texas, and then Joffrey No Interest Loans for providing no interest loans to members of our community. He's also served in the past as a board member for the Islamic Education Center and Al-Hadi School, both located in Houston, and we're very thankful to Brother Imran for joining us.
Salam, can you hear me, and can you see my screen, Word document?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to cover some of the relief options that were passed by Congress recently. I'm going to start with the SBA programs that have been offered, and I'm talking about programs for small businesses, and small businesses includes individuals, people who work independently, electrician, plumber, as well as businesses that have employees up to 500. So I'll go to the SBA programs, then I'll touch briefly on the enhancements to the unemployment insurance that have also been made in this bill. And if you have time, then we can hit some of the miscellaneous items. So if you go to the SBA website, and I have links, and hopefully we can share this document after the session. If you go to the SBA website, coronavirus, you will see they offer 4 different programs. One's called the Paycheck Protection Program. The purpose of this program is to help small businesses continue to pay their employees for at least 8 weeks. So if you take the loan and you use it for paying your employees for 8 weeks after you get the loan, all of that loan will be forgiven. The second program that they're offering is a quick $10,000 loan advance that you can apply for if you're eligible. And the criteria is similar. You're either a person, self-employed person, or you're a small business, and you have been impacted by this crisis. You apply for this by going directly to the SBA website. And then I'll talk about the other 2 options later. So the Paycheck Protection Program, everybody can see my screen?
Yes, it should be displaying fine.
Okay, all right. So I have the link in the document as well, but as you can see, the program is designed to provide a direct incentive for small businesses to keep their workers on the payroll. So the purpose of this program is for small businesses like restaurants, dry clean shops, other places, to keep their people on their payroll for at least 8 weeks, with the hope that, inshallah, in 8 weeks, things get better. So you can use this loan to pay for payroll, rent, mortgage interest, or utilities, but you must use at least 75% of the loan for paying employees. Lenders have started accepting applications. For example, I helped fill out the form for my brother's business for Bank of America, and then for somebody else with Chase today. Other lenders, Wells Fargo hasn't started the program yet, but keep checking with them. Everybody's expecting a lot of applications, so you should apply as soon as you can. So who can apply? So again, if you are a small business with less than 500 employees, and again, this includes people who are self-employed, independent contractors as well. Interestingly, it also includes nonprofits who are 501c3 and 501c19. So if your center or your Sunday school or Islamic school, we're all nonprofits, and I know, for example, centers in Houston, most of them, I believe, are 501c3. So even centers are eligible to apply. So, we need to look into it, because this would help our centers survive as well, because they're also being affected by this crisis. So loan details and forgiveness. So how much can you apply for? So when you start the application process, they will ask you, what is your normal monthly payroll? So if my normal monthly payroll is $10,000, the loan amount will be 2.5 times that. So if I'm paying my employees, including myself, $10,000 a month, the loan will be for $25,000. Now, again, if you use this loan, so from the day you get the loan and over the next 8 weeks, if you use this loan to make payroll payments or rent or utilities, all of that loan will be forgiven. If for any reason the loan is not forgivable, the loan will have a maturity of 2 years and an interest rate of 1%. And you won't have to make any payments for the first 6 months after you get the loan. So where should you go to apply? You have to go to a bank or a credit union that is an approved SBA lender. And the SBA the website also says that you should go to a bank that you already have a checking account with or a loan with. Because since you have an account with them, the bank already has information about you, so your process will go faster. If you go to a bank where you don't have an account yet, you're going to have to go through more waiting for your application to be submitted. Keep in mind that the expenses that are forgivable are the ones that you incur after the loan has been approved. And the loan amount is capped at 2.5 times your normal monthly payroll, or $10 million. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next program. So this is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Advance. This one you can apply for by going directly to the SBA's website. They'll ask you some basic information like your tax ID, your business tax ID. Now, if you're an individual who works for himself or herself, then you would enter your social security number. If you have a business like an LLC or a corporation, you would enter their tax ID. They'll ask you, when was your business formed? What was your last 12 months payroll? So you need to have your accounting data close by so you can answer those questions. It took about 10 minutes for me to fill it out. So it doesn't take long as you have all the information. And the idea is that if you get approved, they will send you a check for $10,000. Now it's called a loan advance, but if you read elsewhere on the screen, you will see that they say that this loan advance will not have to be repaid. So even though they call it a loan advance, the website does say that it will not have to be repaid. So this is a grant. And this is the screen that comes up when you click on to apply. This is the third program. So this only applies to those businesses who already have an existing loan with the SBA. So if you have an existing loan with the SBA, because they already have information about you, you can apply to get an advance of up to $25,000 that will be issued quickly. But this is only, again, for those businesses who already have an existing relationship with the SBA. And this is the fourth program. So the SBA normally has what they call disaster assistance loans. So if there's a hurricane or some other disaster, they normally offer these loans. These are loans, they have to be paid back. The interest rate is low, and you must be in a declared disaster area. And I think all of the US, I think, is going to get that designation because of the crisis we're in. The application takes longer, but the amounts available are larger, and it's a low interest loan. So if you feel that your business needs more funds and the loan would help you survive longer, this is also another option that you can apply for in addition to the first three that I talked about. Okay, now I'm going to move on to enhancements to the unemployment insurance. So a lot of us are employees. We work for a company, and some of these companies are either laying off a bunch of employees, or they're furloughing people, meaning they're saying, okay, we're not going to pay you for the next 3 months or 4 months or 2 months, and after that we'll evaluate whether we want to call you back. So whether you're getting furloughed or you're getting laid off, you're eligible to apply for unemployment to your state. So unemployment claims have to be filed with your state. But what this federal bill does is that it does 2 or 3 different things. One thing that the bill does is that normally if you are a contractor, if you're self-employed, if you work for yourself, you are not eligible for unemployment insurance because you're not employed by any company. In this bill, if your state chooses, even people who are self-employed are eligible to apply for benefits. And if your state chooses to follow this, the unemployment insurance would last up to 39 weeks. And it goes all the way back to January 27th. So for the rest of the year, you would be eligible to apply for unemployment insurance just like anybody who was working for a company. The other thing that this act does is that when you apply for unemployment insurance, in addition to what your state would normally pay you, the federal government is going to add $600 per week for up to 4 months. So $600 per week, that's $2,400 per month, up to 4 months. So this would be, very helpful for people who need help paying rent, mortgages, car payments. So that's a significant enhancement, but this will last for the first 4 months. Now, some of these things may get advanced so that they last longer, but for now, it's limited to the first 4 months. And then for those people who normally states pay for 26 weeks, but in this bill, if somebody has collected unemployment insurance for 26 weeks and the state program runs out, the federal bill is going to add an additional 13 weeks. So instead of the state paying you for just 26 weeks, the state will pay you for up to 39 weeks for unemployment. Now I'm going to mention some miscellaneous items that don't apply to everybody. Sister Sabra covered the rebates part, so I'm going to skip that. If you have federal student loans, all payments of principal and interest are suspended till the end of September. So you don't have to make payments. Now, if you do make payments, I believe they will be applied to principal because they will not be calculating any interest. So for those of you who can make payments, I would make the payments so that all of your payments are going towards the principal, and when the interest does restart, it'll be less. But if you have student loan payments, you can choose to have them suspended till the end of September. If you have a mortgage and that mortgage is a federally backed mortgage, the federal government has told those lenders to give you a deferment of up to 180 days. And so they've been instructed that they allow you to not make any payments for 180 days. After the first 180 days, if you go back and tell them that I'm still experiencing financial difficulty, they're required to give you another deferment for another 180 days. But you have to contact your mortgage servicer. Now, this does not apply to private lenders. So if you have a loan with Bank of America or some other private lender, they are not required to give you a deferment. But most of these large lenders are offering deferments of at least 1 to 2 months, but you'll have to call them. On retirement plans, the couple of things. On a 401k, if you have a 401k loan, you're allowed to suspend payments for 1 year. So if you have a 401k loan through your employer, you can call them and say, I don't want to make any payments for 1 year. If you have a 401k or a 403b fund, you will be allowed to withdraw money from the fund without being charged the extra 10% penalty. So for people who are younger than 15 and a half, if they take money out of the 401k, there's an extra 10% penalty that you have to pay. This penalty will not be applied during this time, but keep in mind that you will have to pay federal income tax on any withdrawals that you make. Also, keep in mind that because of the stock market, because stock market has fallen significantly, if you withdraw money now, your 401k is going to sell the investments to convert it to cash to give it to you. So keep that in mind before you decide if you want to use this option. Another change is that normally 401k loans are limited to $50,000, but during this time, you're allowed to borrow up to $100,000 from your vested 401k balance. Credit reporting. One of the things that is included in the act is that if you call your lender and you tell your lender that, hey, I'm not able to make these car payments or this mortgage payment because I'm having issues because of this virus crisis, the lenders have been told not to report you as late. So if you don't make payments or if you make partial payments, the lenders are required to report you as current on your credit report, which means your credit report will not be negatively impacted because you're missing payments or you're not paying as much as the normal payment is. Now, keep in mind, this only lasts through the end of July, but if you skip a couple of payments, as long as you call the lender and tell them that I'm having issues because of this crisis, they are required to not report you as delinquent or late on your payments. Okay, that was my presentation.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Jazakumullah. Thank you, Sister Sabira and Brother Imran, for brief and very to the point presentations. So there are a number of programs for individuals and for businesses and nonprofits and even centers. So we can now open it up to any questions that people may have. You're welcome to use the chat window or the audio. I do request after you ask a question, if you can mute your microphone so that we don't have interference. That will be helpful. So we can open the floor. Anybody with a question, please step forward. Maybe we can start with a comment from Brother Wazir that Nuchin celebrated the more than 17,000 loans valued at over 5.4 billion processed on the program's first day with 1,100 local lenders involved. So has there, I know Sister Sabra, you mentioned that some of the stimulus payments have been pushed back. Maybe Sister Sabra, if you can begin, and Brother Imran, then if you can speak. Has there been any indication of the rollout and the likely time frame for the rollout of the individual stimulus checks and for some of these facilities available to businesses and nonprofits?
Yeah, so one of the things when I was doing my research and reading on this, with especially, again, yes, so they were supposed to start sending out checks and sending out payment on April 6th. That literally changed, I want to say yesterday, and that's when they reported out that it's taking a bit longer. So they don't have an exact date. And like I said, they were saying that they pushed it out a week, but then they were also indicating that they don't have an exact date because as this virus spreads, it's putting a lot of people into quarantine and preventing them from working, right? So I think that's the reason why there is that the delay from what I've heard. The other thing on the PPP loans, the up to the ones for payroll and for small businesses, the full amount that's been allocated for the 2 trillion is about I want to say about $350 billion are assigned there. The key thing with the small business is that below 500 employees, but there are a lot of small businesses in the US. The US is a very entrepreneurial country, and there'll be a lot of people applying. So if your business is suffering or that you think that it may suffer, I would suggest apply now. That's the key, because once that money is gone, it's gone.
Thank you. Thank you, Brother Imran. Would you like to speak to some of the programs available for businesses and organizations?
Yes. So most of these banks don't understand all the rules that the SBA is requiring. So the way an SBA normally works is that if you go for a normal SBA loan, the SBA guarantees 75% of the loan, meaning that if the bank makes a loan and the borrower defaults, the SBA will pay the bank up to 75% of the loan. And this is what convinces the bank to make the loan in the first place. In this case, the SBA is guaranteeing 100% of the loans to give an incentive to the banks to make the loan. But at the same time, the SBA is not paying the banks what they normally pay for other loans. For example, the SBA is supposed to pay 5% of the loan as a fee to the bank. So in this case, they're not doing that. In addition, they are also telling the banks that they cannot charge more than 1% on the loan, which is a relatively very low rate compared to what the banks normally charge. So some of these banks don't have an incentive to actually participate in the program. Some of the larger banks like Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, they're facing political pressure from the federal government to participate. But as a credit union, I have access to information about what credit unions are doing, and a lot of the credit unions who normally do SBA loans are saying that they have no incentive to participate in this program because they don't see themselves making much money from it. And in addition, because the program is new, if the SBA decides that you issued a loan that was not eligible, they may not guarantee the loan at all. And so then the credit union or the bank would end up losing money. So the reason for the slower rollout is, one, it's a new program, and the banks, even large banks like Chase and Bank of America, having trouble understanding what are the exact requirements that the SBA wants them to meet. And then secondly, the incentives are not there for these lenders because they don't see themselves making a whole lot of money from this program. So Bank of America started their application process, I believe, yesterday afternoon. I checked Chase yesterday. As of yesterday, they were not accepting anything. And then this morning, they announced that they have started accepting the first part of the application. Wells Fargo, I believe, is still announcing on the website that they're not ready yet, but they expect to be ready on Monday. So like Sister Sabra said, there's a limited amount of money, and anybody who thinks that they're eligible should apply as soon as they can.
Jazakumullah. All right. Any other questions? Please do feel free to ask. We have a chat window, and if you'd like to write in your question, we can read it out. Or if you'd like to ask yourself, then you're welcome to do that as well.
Hello, assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Alaikum salam. Yes, please go ahead.
A quick question about the to talk to the mortgage companies and the credit card companies. Do you have to provide proof of hardship?
It depends on the lender. So if it's a federally backed loan, they are not allowed to ask you too many questions. If you tell them, you have to affirm, meaning you have to give them something that says, I've been negatively impacted by this crisis. So they're supposed to accept your simple affirmation that you've been impacted. With private lenders, it depends on the private lender. So for example, our credit union, the Jaffrey Credit Union, we have told people that we will do deferments if they can show us that they have been negatively impacted by the crisis. So for example, if you're still getting your paycheck, you're working from home, then really there is no change in your financial situation and you can continue to make the payments. So it depends on the lender on how much proof they are going to ask from you, whether you've been impacted or not.
Shukran.
And if you'd like to ask a question specifically to one of our presenters, then you can specify Sister Sabra or Brother Imran, or you can ask a general question and then either one of them or both of them might address it.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, I just wanted to add there's somebody else that has a mic on. So can you guys, I know somebody was about to have a question. If you can just give me 2 minutes by putting your mic on mute, then then once I'm done, you can ask a question. That's okay. Okay. With the banks and everything, I've had experience with them last year during the government shutdown. Most banks and this actually goes to utilities as well. So not just banks, but like your gas company, electric company, water company, all of them will work with you if you call them up and let them know the situation. Like this is unusual what's happening now, but last year during the shutdown, it was a matter of just calling them up and verbally telling them that, hey, I work for the government and I don't have an income at the moment because the government's shut down. They're aware of it and it's more beneficial for them. It's actually easier for them to pause your payments versus to kick you out, and which they actually can't do that. There's actually part of the stimulus package and everything. There is a ruling out there that you can't get evicted or from a rental or have from your house if you've lost your job due to Corona. So it's good to be aware of this. That's what I wanted to add.
Yeah. So you cannot be evicted if the multi-family home where you're living is on a federally backed mortgage. So the federal government cannot, right now, they haven't told everybody, but they have told the people who have loans from the federal government that if you have an apartment complex or if you have a mortgage on a house, that you're not allowed to evict anybody. But if your apartment complex is owned by a private company, then it's really up to them. But like Sister Sabra said, in Houston, I've heard from people whose apartment complexes have contacted them and told them, okay, we know that you might be impacted, so don't worry, we're not going to take any action against you, and we'll work with you to figure out, when you can start paying us again. So contact everybody that you need to make a payment to. They will 90%, work with you to some extent.
Thank you. For those of you who asked about the presentations, both of them are available. The link is in the chat window. So if you'd like to take a look at the presentations, we only saw a part of Sister Sabira's, but those presentations are available for download or for view. So we can move on to other questions.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Walaikum salam, yes.
Yeah, I have a question about this grant. If we get the grant and we use it for the mortgage payment, wouldn't it be better for us to pay them rather than to stop paying the mortgage? Because then that grant can be used as, paying the mortgage. Thank you.
I don't know which grant you were talking about. So the
small business grant.
The Paycheck Protection Program?
No, the small business grant, that the 10,000 grant that we are supposed to get for the small business.
Yeah. So you need to be, so the funds need to go to your business. Now, what your business does with the money, that's up to the business. Okay. So just make sure that you keep the documentation that the money went to the business and the business chose, for example, to pay you your salary, and then you used your salary to pay the mortgage. So, make sure that you do things in a certain order. If your business pays the mortgage directly, then they might come back to you and say, okay, you did not use this for your business. You paid off somebody's private mortgage. So if whatever you do it in a certain order. So if you're an employee of the business, the grant can be used to pay an employee. Now, if the employee chooses to pay the personal mortgage, that's up to the employee. So just do things in a certain order.
Okay, thank you. We have a question, written question for Brother Imran. With respect to sole proprietorships or self-employed individuals, is it correct to say that they cannot or should not apply for assistance via PPP program if they do not have any employees? And will you please clarify why self-employed should or should not apply for assistance?
Okay, so if you're self-employed, I have not researched, but a self-employed person is paying himself or herself. So when you file your tax return, you fill out a schedule. I believe it's called SE, self-employed. So you are paying yourself, and I believe that if you're doing that, then you will be eligible. So again, we need to look more into this. But a self-employed person is being included because they are paying themselves or they're paying their spouse. So they are considered to be paying somebody.
So with the sole proprietorship, what kind of business structure would be needed to qualify?
A self-proprietor is basically, it means that you're in business by yourself. So whether you're using your own Social Security to do your business, or you are incorporated and you have a LLC or a S corp, self-proprietor means that you're operating just by yourself. So those have been specifically included in the bill. So if you don't have a corporation, if you don't have LLC, you're still eligible to apply.
Jazakumullah. Any other questions? Again, feel free to write your question in the chat window. We can read it off. If you have access to a microphone, then you can ask it in person.
Assalamu alaikum, Agha.
Wa alaikum salam. We can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question about community, like a lot of in our community we have cab drivers. So is there any program which can help them in these difficult times? So they are independent contractor or like driver working for different companies, like Uber drivers or Lyft drivers, and mostly like cab drivers which are independent.
So it depends on how they get paid. So if you're a cab driver and you're being paid with 1099 form by the company that collects the fares, then you are an independent contractor and you're eligible to apply. Similarly, if you're an Uber driver, if you're classified as a independent contractor, you're eligible to apply. And in California, there's still this question going on because California law recently classified Uber drivers as employees of Uber. And now there's a question of whether they'll be eligible for the unemployment insurance if they've been classified as employees. So if you're getting a 1099 miscellaneous, then you are an independent contractor and you are included in this bill.
Okay, thank you, Jazak.
Jazakumullah. We have one question in the chat window about the Jaffrey Credit Union. If you can just briefly address it, perhaps it's tangentially related. Do you do refinancing, and what are the terms and rates?
The Jaffrey Credit Union, you can Google it, it's jaffreycu.com. Currently, the credit union does refinancing of existing student loans and existing car loans, and you have to be either living in Texas to join, or if you're living outside of Texas, you have to be a family member of somebody who's already a member of the credit union. So you can go to jaffreycu.com and look up information. There's a short video and other links that you can look at.
Jazakumullah. So if we understood correctly, I think from both of your presentations, you said that if you qualify for the grant, then it's not a question of your cash flow and how soon you may hit a financial crunch. You should apply, and you should apply as soon as possible. Correct? And Sister Saber also shared the link to the Jaffrey Credit Union. If anyone would like more information on that, the link is available in the chat window. So is that correct for?
Yes. So you should apply, whether you've been impacted negatively or not. So let's say that your business is such that there's not been much impact on you. Even then, you should go ahead and apply.
I concur with that. There are a lot of businesses out there that technically should not qualify, but are working in ways of qualifying for those funding. So if your business meets the eligibilities, apply.
Okay, very good. Any other questions?
Assalamu alaikum. I have a question. Thank you so much for this presentation to the community, and every week it's been very helpful. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. My question is for Sister Sabra. Most of the community, most likely, inshallah, fall into the category that you were talking about. We filed our 2018 taxes, and we're waiting for this credit that we're supposed to get via check or hopefully in direct deposit if we've used that in 2018. What do we have to do to get that, or do we just wait and it should appear?
So you don't actually have to do anything to get the credit. If you are eligible, they will send you the money. It will be based, if you haven't filed your 2019, it will be based on your 2018 tax refund. So what you earn at that point, and they'll base it off of that. Ideally, you want to file, you don't want to hold up. I know the taxes has been extended, and tax day, instead of being on the 15th of April, is now the 15th of July. I strongly suggest not waiting that long to apply. So if you can apply, if you can file your taxes now, please do so.
Is there any way to update a person's address if they're not able to file their taxes right now for whatever reason?
Not at this moment in time. The IRS hasn't updated that as yet.
Thank you so much. That was good advice. Part two to my question is for Brother Imran. For those of us that do have student loans, that are federal student loans, do we have to call My Fed Loan or our federal servicer and let them know to postpone our payment? Or should we once again wait and the payment should have been suspended?
I have not read anywhere that said that they will automatically do this. Now, they may, but just to be safe, I would call your student lender, or at least go to their website and see what they're saying. I'm guessing that if you try to call now, that they're experiencing very high call volume. But I would definitely go to their website and see if there's an announcement on their website, either saying that we have suspended these payments, or that we will if you make the request.
Jazakallah, thank you.
So we have a question in the chat window, and since we don't have access to the Federal Reserve Chairman, we'll have to ask both of you to offer any comment if you do have any general thoughts on where the economy is headed, and any general advice for members of the community, given the uncertainties ahead, what to think about, what to plan for, what to do.
I'm going to say that is the $1 million question as well. Unfortunately, realistically speaking, there is going to be a downturn in the economy on this. They've already said that we've lost, I believe we're down to, I think, decades worth of growth, or at least 2 to 3 years worth of growth. We've definitely lost. Unemployment is ridiculously high at the moment, and it will increase as this goes along. The stimulus package is very helpful, and there's a lot of good things in it. It will pull us through to September, October time, and then depending on how this virus is at that point, will kind of dictate further. But this is what I'm going to say. Pray to Allah that it gets better, and that it's not as bad as a lot of people are predicting.
Yeah, I don't think that, I think it's very difficult right now to predict what's going to happen. But I will say this, that you should take advantage of everything that you have a right to take advantage of. The federal government is doing these programs from tax dollars. We are all taxpayers, so all of us are paying for all of this. Don't think that, I don't need this help right now, so I'm not going to take it. Take the help and help somebody else. For example, if you're a business, that's fine, but you qualify for this loan that becomes a forgivable loan. Help some other business who needs help, or help somebody else in the community. But do take advantage of everything that has been offered. Try and learn, and just like attending this session, try and learn about other things that are being offered. So, for example, there are cities. The city of Columbia has their own no-interest loan program that they're offering to businesses that are within their city limits. So these are federal programs, there are state programs, and there are city-level programs, where you might be. So look for everything, share information with other people, and inshallah, we'll all be fine.
One thing, sorry, I just remembered to add, which I forgot to mention in my presentation, and it's a good point. Yes, we are all taxpayers. So to be eligible to the stimulus, it's not just U.S. citizens. If you live in the United States and you file taxes, you are eligible. So if you are here on an H-1B visa, you are eligible because you file taxes.
Thank you. There's a question from the chat window. How can I apply for the LLC economic impact check? Please give us the link.
So the presentation is on the website. Then the link is the presentation.
Sure. So in the chat window that you asked that same question, you will find, if you scroll up, you'll find a link to Sister Sabra and Brother Imran's presentation, and you should find the links that you need within that presentation. There's another question for Sister Sabra. There are people in the community who may not file their tax returns for various reasons. They're on a cash basis or whatever other reason. You may have already addressed this, but will you please clarify how they can be eligible for funds from the stimulus program?
So whilst I do understand that there are some people that work on a cash basis, unfortunately, if you've not filed your taxes, you're not eligible. You have to have at least filed your 2018 taxes, and it will be basically on your declared income. That's what the stimulus check is based on. If you have not filed your taxes, unfortunately, you're ineligible. Sorry.
Okay, so because since the program has been announced, there's been a lot of back and forth. For example, people who are on Social Security who don't file taxes. So some of the senators have come out and said that they will ask the IRS to send checks to people who are on Social Security or SSI, Supplemental Security Income, since the IRS has their information and in most cases has their bank information, even if they're not filing taxes. Another statement that was made by somebody in the Treasury Department was that for people who normally don't file taxes, the IRS is looking at providing a web portal where you go in and you identify yourself and you provide your address and your Social Security number and your bank information, and they will use that information to decide whether they're going to send you the stimulus check or not. Now, by law, you're eligible if your income is under 75, single, or 150, if married. So legally you're eligible, but the IRS doesn't have information about you. So there are discussions going on in the IRS. We say that, okay, how do we go about collecting information? And one of the suggestions that was made was the IRS may develop a web portal for two reasons. One, they would rather direct deposit the money in your bank, so this will allow you to enter your bank information, even if you are filing taxes, but the IRS doesn't have your bank information. And then two, if you are eligible but you have not filed taxes in 2018 or 2019. Another thing that I also, again, all this information is coming from news, but it's good to know. Another piece of information that came up, somebody had asked in some of the session that if I'm not eligible because I haven't filed my taxes yet, what will happen? Do I never get the stimulus check? And the response was that when you file your 2020 tax return, if the IRS decides that you are eligible you were eligible, but you had never filed taxes in 2019 or 2018, then that stimulus check would become a tax credit on your 2020 return. So they are trying to figure out ways to get you the money, but it's just the speed of movement is how fast can they make it happen.
Okay, Jazakumullah. We're going to try to wrap up in the next few minutes. If there's any other questions, and then maybe we'll briefly ask both of our presenters to give any closing thoughts. So we'll give another chance. There's one question, just clarifying if this loan to be considered as income for 2020 tax year. I presume they're speaking about the business loans that are available. Hello, can you hear me, Brother Imran and Sister Sabra?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So there's one question also that's come through a private message, which is, my question is that I filed for 2019. I owe money to the IRS and I'm not able to pay because I'm not working right now. So what will happen to my check? Will I get the full amount, or will there be a kind of a garnishing of the debt to the IRS?
So from what I've heard, and at this moment in time, there is no garnishing of the check unless you owe child support. That would be the only time where there may be some potential garnishing. Other than that, the stimulus check will not be garnished.
Yes, I've heard the same thing, that no one will be allowed to take that $1,200 from you for anything that you currently owe. So for example, as a credit union, we got an email stating that if your member owes you some fees from the past, like late fees or something like that, you're not allowed to deduct the fees from the $1,200. You're required to turn over the $1,200 to the member. Normally, if your paycheck came in and you owed the credit union some money, we would deduct those fees from your latest paycheck. But we've been instructed that financial institutions have been told you cannot recover any past due amounts from the $1,200 that is going to come to that member.
Okay, thank you. There's a question. I think the question is for me. I apologize to both of our presenters, but if you just give me permission to briefly address this question. From a religious perspective, we may have family members who may be in dire need of funds due to the current crisis. So what religious funds can be used to assist them? So any recommended religious funds, the month of Sha'ban is an excellent time to give sadaqah in general. So any recommended funds you can give for family members, for community members in need. I think it is an excellent suggestion that if you qualify for a government grant or loan, especially a loan that will be forgiven, take that if you don't need it and pass it on to those who may not be able to have access to those funds. Of course, do everything above board. For khums money, you can spend sahm al-zakat, of course, if somebody is in need. And according to most of our fuqaha, you can spend up to 1/2 of sahm imam for somebody who is sick or has suffered because of the infection with the coronavirus. So that's not a general permission to use khums funds, sahm imam in particular, for somebody who might have been economically impacted indirectly. If you do have religious funds, whether they be khums, whether they be voluntary funds like sadaqah, then you can direct them towards those. But if it's a khums fund, then direct it towards a center or an Islamic organization that does have the authorization, and that way they can use a portion of it for those who might have been economically impacted, and also for their other charitable and religious activities. So this is something that is very highly recommended, and the Quran says that believers are those yunfiquna fi sarra wa darra. So when things are going well, it's of course valuable to give to those who are in need and worthy religious causes. But when things are not going well, or darra, there is an even greater need. And that's when our character shows. Are we able and willing to give at those times? I hope that addresses the question. Any closing thoughts, Brother Imran, since you were presented last, why don't you begin? And then Sister Sabra, you can give your closing thoughts.
Yeah, so I would say, just like Sister Sabra said, that things are changing almost on a daily basis. So I know that the news is not pleasant to hear, but keep an eye out for other things that are going to come, or adjustments that are made to the existing programs. The government is really trying to get the economy going again, and there's already a talk of another stimulus bill that will be coming out that is in discussion. So stay tuned and make sure that you take advantage of anything that is announced, and also share the information. Sometimes we get information but we don't share it. share the information with others so that they can benefit. If you come across something that is not applicable to you, it's okay. Share it to somebody else, and it may be applicable to them.
Jazakumullah. Sister Sabra?
Yeah, I just, thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk to the community and stuff. But just like what Brother Imran said, it's a case of if you are eligible, please do apply. And I've also heard the same thing, that they're looking into second rounds of help for those who need it. And just, be safe. That would be the only alternate, the thing I can say. Inshallah, this will pass.
Jazakumullah. Inshallah, we make dua that it does pass, and that the end result is that it has brought us closer together and given us a greater sense of our mutual connection and responsibility. Once again, thank you, Sister Sabra Devji, Brother Imran Hanji, for your presentations, all of participants for your joining us, for your questions. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.